Okay, so let's get started. Thank you everyone for joining in. This is the fourth session of the day, which is day one for us. We of course have 3 more days to go. Looking forward to an amazing conversation on smart factories with the panel that we have with very distinguished panel members today. So we'll focus on smart factories, but we will focus on the questions that of course were raised in the first 3 sessions. There are quite a lot of around leadership, strategy, skills, culture, and all of those that were raised. So of course we have the industry leaders, the practitioners with us today talking about it. Let me quickly introduce the panel members. Happy to have Pablo coming in from the US, and Pablo is of course the president of Kennedy Executive Search, focused primarily on leadership assignments in the FMCG, medical devices, specialty chemicals. But the reason why he's on the panel is because he's seeing massive amount of change in the way leaderships are hired and the change that leadership is undertaking with regards to Industry 4.0 and smart factories. So Pablo, welcome to this panel discussion. I'm also very happy to have Dr. Aravind Chinsure joining in today with us. A very, very renowned academician, a corporate strategist, of course, has been an innovation leader, worked for large organizations, ran innovation for them across multiple aspects. He's an enthusiast on Industry 4.0, understand this space extremely well. I'm glad that we have with him today as well on this panel discussion. Enrico, thank you for joining in, the Chief Digital and Information Officer from Bonfiglioli, joining in from Italy. Massive amount of experience in change management, undertaking massive amount of digital transformation projects for his company. And I'm sure his experience about digital transformation, Industry 4.0 will come in extremely handy in this panel conversation today. Enrico, welcome to this panel discussion, and very, 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 very happy to have Madhavan as well on the panel, President Digital Transformation Strategy for Mar Labs. Of course, ran massive amount of digital transformation capability building programs for multiple organizations, right from startups to established companies. Has also ran innovation programs in multiple areas. What I like about his approach is it's completely non-linear. When we started speaking about this topic, his topics, of course, came out as fresh air, created a massive amount of change, and especially around sustainability, environment, and green. Very happy to have you on board as well, Madhavan. Fabulous. So maybe we'll take a quick, we'll start and get a quick reaction on smart factories, Industry 4.0, quick reactions from the team. And then I will, of course, ask a few questions. All of you are welcome to respond to that. Maybe I'll request Enrico to get started. Enrico, what do you mean, in your perspective, what does Industry 4.0 mean? You've undertaken massive amount of digital transformation over the last 5 years in your company. How difficult or easy it has been for you to implement it?
Well, thank you for the question. Well, Industry 4.0 has been, heard, at least in my experience, for 5-6 years. We started to embrace, the transition to Industry 4.0 in Bonfiglioli. That is a manufacturing company. We design, produce, and ships throughout the world gearboxes. So really heavy metal boxes full of gears. And actually, at the beginning, I still remember it sounded more as a buzzword. I mean, after 4 years of digital transformation, actually we start finally seeing the factory working the way we expect it to be. So you see a lot of work centers that are connected. We have started doing predictive maintenance in some of the work centers. Definitely, I don't want to deceive the audience. I mean, it's not going to be a very nice and pleasant walk through the digital transformation. I mean, it takes a long time. You cannot short circuit with a flick of a switch. It takes a lot of endorsement and sponsorship from the top management. And so perhaps I'm gonna give you more details if you're interested in that. Simply say that it's a path. So it's a long transformation process. Definitely the advice that I give everybody is try to envision a long-term plan, but remember to fill that plan with also short-term initiatives, or else people simply lose their patience. So there are things that are not completed yet in 4 years, but things that were ready after 2 months. So you need to combine these two approaches if you want to be successful since the beginning, but also aim at ambitious projects in the long term.
Hey, thank you, Enrico. I think you've raised the point, and I like the way you mentioned, right? It's ultimately sponsorship from the top management is very, very critical, and that then brings me to Pablo. Top management, Pablo. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? How has things changed at the top management since you are in the space hiring C-level executives for large manufacturing organizations around the world?
Our experience is basically that sometimes people just think about leadership in the digital age and forget about leadership in the core. So the most transformational leaders that we have found, and most transformational companies have leaders that are both digitally savvy, but also very experienced on basics of leadership, from building the right teams, having the right processes, building the skills and the capabilities of the companies in the long term. So the big discussion that we have with our clients is sometimes we see companies wanted to move very fast and believing that just getting ahead of digital transformation will solve everything they need. And clearly this is a company-wide transformation. It's important to have a catalyst on, let's say, someone like Enrico, but that person cannot work alone. And one of the things we find is that in basically when we recruit candidates into digital transformation is clearly being knowledgeable about technologies. Industry 4.0 is great, but you need to have your emotional intelligence level. You need to understand stakeholder management. You need to be able to communicate and persuade the whole organization. And so that's one. And the second part I would say is that the head of transformation, digital transformation cannot work alone, needs the team. And there is a big impact because companies will need to go after new competencies like in data science, right? That everybody needs to build that competency. And there's a huge shortage of talent. So it's in the past, companies just were selecting candidates. Now they need to attract very hard, retain, and also look for opportunities to really do upskilling and reskilling of some valuable workers that they already have, right? So as Enrico was saying, is basically company-wide. It requires total commitment from the board down, and will include the different functions and a different perspective about the talent, the new talent that we need to bring. And very small thing here is there is a diversity situation because most of the people in the IT areas or data science is not a diverse field. Only a few people studying in those areas in the universities today, but they are not diverse. And that's a challenge for an organization that also wants to move ahead in diversity and inclusion.
Yep. Obviously talent management, talent skill building, you have working with universities, of course, is very critical. And who better to speak about this than Dr. Arvind about, how do we get university participation in the entire talent development, skill development space? Dr. Arvind, your comments, please.
So, thank you, Sandeep. This is such a pleasure and also privilege to be part of this event. Very, very exciting event, the kind of a topics that you have chosen. So thank you for making me being part of this. So let me make 3 points, Sandeep. In fact, I'm not enthusiastic in Industry 4.0, but I have been intensely working for last over 3 years on implementation of Industry 4.0. So the first question that we need to ask, and all of us we need to ask, is why Industry 4.0 and why smart factories, and why in the context that we are living in. So we are living in a post-COVID world. So let me share the shifts that are happening in the world and what makes smart factories compelling for the organizations to adopt. So let me go back to 2019. Of course, it's not 2019 is not a 10 years back. Just it's a 1.5 year back.
It's pre-COVID is always different era.
Different era. So let me go to this pre-COVID era, 2019. And when I speak to senior executives of companies, no matter which sector, CEOs and senior leaders, the whole conversation was about growth, about revenues, about productivity, about efficiency, about hiring. So this whole conversation used to be around new products and possibly new markets. Then comes COVID. And in 2020, when I speak to business leader, their first concern is health and safety. How do I manage? Next is my supply chain. How do I now create a product for the market that is we are in today? That is, COVID needs certain products, not the products that we have been developing. So the talent is not available. So this is what cash flow management, floor plan. This was all the discourse that I could hear in 2020. Now comes 2021. Now with this kind of a shift, so recently there was a study that was done with 500 organizations around the world, and the survey asked very few questions. What is the top priorities for the organizations today? Believe me, it was not revenues. It was not about cost. It was not about efficiency and productivity. The first thing and biggest shift in the CEO's priority is, how do I make my business resilient? Now resilience is coming. Business resilience is the #1 priority. Then what is the next priority for CEOs or business leaders is, how do I reduce my risk? The disruption is happening. So my supply chain is in a problem, my materials is a problem, my people are a problem. How do I reduce that risk? And third is, how do I get business insights? But remember now, from a growth to all these, cash flow, health, safety, what business leaders are talking about is, now I want to build a resilient organization. Now, what is the second shift? The second shift that I see pre-COVID world, if I look at products, processes, and people, and then if I look at markets, machines, and materials, hardly used to change in the organization. Even if there is a change, the change is very, very slow. Now come to this post-COVID world. Post-COVID world, I cannot have the same products. I cannot have the same process. I cannot have the same people, or may not have the people. I may have to think about new markets. Materials are unpredictable. So now there is a very, very different scenario where things which were constant, now they are dynamic. Very interesting. Huh? Now organizations are saying that I want to build flexibility and speed in my company. So resilience, de-risking, flexibility, and speed to adopt, agility. So this is the second shift that I have seen. Now let me make now, if now, how do I create an organization where resilience is done by design, not by, force? Let me give a couple of examples. What is that resilience by design? Because there were companies who survived. They continued to grow in spite of this disruption. Let me quickly share about a company, which is an Oxford-based company, UK-based company called P2I, which has operations in UK and China. And they have these nano coatings for electronic materials. And now 2020, the first COVID hits in China, and there is a lockdown, and their factory is in China. But they have commitments to their clients. They had operational schedules, everything was scheduled. And believe me, because they had this smart factory, they could control and operate sitting in UK as if that the people are in the factories. And those employees in the factory, they moved to a nearby hotel and they were operating the machine. And believe me, P2I never missed a single commitment they had, not a single service. And this I call resilience by design, not by force. Now you may ask very fundamental, audience may ask a very fundamental questions. Okay, this is a new mid-sized modern company. Tell me about legacy company. I have a 100-year-old legacy company. Can I build resilience by design? Are there any examples? Let me give 2 examples. First example is Novartis. Now, 100-year-old Swiss company, Novartis, which we call it as a pharma company, and Vas Narasimhan, when he took over as the CEO of a company, and he said, we are not a pharma company, we are data and AI company. Just, I request audience to just go and Google what is Novartis. Novartis is not a pharma company. That's what Novartis is saying. And then look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk is saying, look, we are not automotive company. Today, Elon Musk is $600 billion or whatever, $600 billion valuation achieved. Why? He says we are not an automotive company, automobile company. We are data and AI company. They are playing that game. So they are building resilience by design and having those smart factories. Now the question is why there is such a less adoption rate. So let me conclude with my third point. Third point is organizations want to adopt to Industry 4.0, digital transformation. They have an intent. They have investment. What is missing, what Pablo said, is that it is organizational capability. It's a lack of organizational capability to conceive, to implement and sustain smart factory projects. And therefore, we are talking about skilling revolution, capability building. And of course, I can go on talking about how to do this. So maybe if I get a time, let me talk about my own experience of implementing this smart factory. So now it is not an option. It is not a choice. It is an imperative. It's a compelling thing for every one of us to think about smart factories. Over to you.
Fabulous, Arvind. I think you've given a lot of food for thought. Built on what Enrico and Pablo mentioned. And I want to get reactions from Madhavan here. You've worked on both sides, Madhavan, from an innovation standpoint. You've worked with organizations across multiple geographies. As Dr. Arvind said, now there is no choice for these companies but to embrace such kind of change. What's your reaction to these points?
Sure. No, very, very interesting conversations, a lot of takeaways, I think, for us as much as the audiences. I would like to start off, with a very, very innocuous, but an important question to all of us, Sandy. I think the answer must be a very thoughtful answer, if you will. While we talk about smart factory, I really want to ask ourselves, is smart doing more things or doing more with things? I think that's a very important question to ask ourselves. I think the world has really moved into doing more things, right? It's a very funny example. I'm sure we all have many such examples. The very first phone that I bought, cell phone was, mobile phone was, it lasted 7 years with me. The next one was 5.5, the next one was 4. Today, even with a half-eaten fruit in the back as the logo, it lasts less than 3 years. It's because we are doing more things. We are not doing more with things. I think if you really look at it, we need to really take a step back when it comes to smart factory or smart manufacturing to say, think life cycle. Just don't think that entity. I loved what Dr. Arvind said when he talked about business resilience. I would go one level further down back into product resilience, right? If you look at it very carefully and ask ourselves this very careful question, I think the material resilience, the underlying resilience of the underlying materials in most of the manufacturing things hasn't changed. An iron is an iron, a copper is a copper, right? What's really changed is when we put them together, the product resilience has drastically come down, owing to many things that we've done in the recent past. So I think we really need to ask ourselves, is the life cycle not more important than just injecting cool technologies? And the smartness is in injecting that life cycle resilience through design, through principles around not cradle to grave, but cradle to cradle in a circular economy. As much as we talk about factories, we should talk about the ecosystem, the supply chain, the distribution, the transportation and logistics. And I often wonder, this is not a wordplay, I often wonder, there is a forward logistics, there is a forward supply chain. Why isn't there a reverse logistics? When I'm done with my product, why am I looking for an e-waste bin? Why can't I just go to the same source where I bought the product from? And why is that not built back into the manufacturing cycle, right? So net, to the other earlier point that, Pablo was raising, which is very important. I think I was actually almost grinning when he said emotional intelligence. As much as there is emotional intelligence in leadership, I think the emotional intelligence in leaders of these companies making these decisions must also be one on mindfulness. Mindfulness on how are we going to build smartness into this whole thing. There are bigger examples which we can talk about if time permits, but this is not just a dry talk, right? Companies like Bentley, companies like Whirlpool, companies like Ericsson, like Boeing, like IKEA, they've all done this. They've shown this. I'm sure Enrico is doing it as we speak for his company. So I think the question really that we need to ask ourselves is, what's smartness? And emphatically answer, smartness is about a better living. Smartness is about what gives us a better living. And that's built around design to do more with less, keep the core, modify the content, and increase the longevity. Be mindful of the footprint around resource, around environment, economic footprints, and build in the resilience, not just in business, but the products, and kind of, think about our smart manufacturing and the entire ecosystem in which we put smart factory to basically say, how can this address all of these factors? Now, that's a lot of things better explained with examples, but just being mindful of time, happy to bring up some examples during the interactive discussion. Back to Sanjay.
So I'm here to just make sure that we are looking at certain critical aspects about this the smart factories. Of course, there is a lot of buzz around smart factories, Industry 4.0. And a lot of times we speak about technology in around this, right? But frankly, it's not about technology, right? It's a journey, and the journey needs to be taken both at the senior management as well as the people who are going to implement it. And that capability building becomes a massive challenge. And it also brings out an element of strategy, culture in the organization. Just wanted to take a quick reaction from Pablo on strategy and culture with regards to organizations who are intending to implement this change.
So I would say, Sandy, that like any other big transformation of a company, so let's have clear why companies are getting into digital transformation, in this case, Industry 4.0, right, is one aspect. But they may want to really rethink their clients and customer experiences, They also want to have an exponential improvement in operations. That's basically where Industry 4.0 plays, has a big role. And they also will want to reinvent their business model, right? These are the three main things that a digital or transformational leader needs to do. In terms of what I call the DNA of that transformational leader, very much like the ones that are here with me in the panel, they have to be the leader that have to be able to design a vision, right? That they have to involve the organization and bring in the organization with them, not just their the board of directors or investors or peers, the heart and minds of the people. That's my comment about emotional intelligence. Then they have to have very strong project management and process management skills. And finally, they need to look, as Enrico was saying, into the future. This is not fast. They need to build sustainable abilities and capabilities, and not only in technologies, but also in leadership, right? The next generation of leaders. And I want to make sure that people understand this. There is also a role for the ones that are not leaders, right? I think it's an important thing that we all make sure that people understand this is the future. This is the future of business, this is the future of life, interconnectivity, use of data, doing things in a very, very different way. And the people that embrace that are willing to take chances, that are willing to invest their time in, let's say, getting additional education, an online course, or asking for, sign up for an upskilling class, those are the ones that are going to get the benefits, right? So that would be my point. I think the painting the vision, and in my world of companies hiring, more and more companies are building this their digital vision into their employer brand. So when someone goes to understand what is this company looking for in people, or what jobs they have open, is very clear, right? And that not only externally, but also internally for the people that are posting for or applying for the same jobs. So what I'm trying to say here is, at the end of the day, this is an amazing transformation, but it takes the very traditional leadership skills that we have discussed many other times for everything from restructuring, re-engineering in the 90s to, go to market changes, etc. It just very focused on having the leadership skills, traditional, plus the new digital skills that will create the leaders that we can do all the things that we're talking about. If we have any gap there, let's give you a very simple example. We have companies that have all the leadership capabilities, but don't understand digital or don't want to invest. They are in a wait and see type of situation. Those companies tend to fail too, or lag behind. It takes courage from the higher level of the companies to make the investment required and have the patience that clearly patience, because they see the ROI, right? That Bonfiglioli, for instance, has, as Enrico is explaining.
Yeah, courage and patience. So, Enrico, we want to hear your journey. How did it get started? And also, did you get external help? Was it in partnership with an external help where, of course, your management, your board had the courage, had the patience to go through this process, through this digital transformation, but also very importantly, what kind of external help did you get? Was it done, all by them, all by you, or in partnership? We would love to understand your journey, please.
Well, you need to seek for help when you're doing a process of digital transformation. It doesn't matter exactly who you are involving, you have to get this support, but you need support because a digital transformation is by definition interfunctional. So it is impossible that there's only one person, even if it's the strongest leader in the world, that can lead such an ambitious project all by himself, or all a company just by itself. It would be really not so believable. Rather than giving you, I mean, I prefer to tell you about the story of my company, so at least you have a practical example. We started to talk about the digital transformation at the end of 2017. It was December, and at that time we decided that I could be leading this kind of process of transformation. And as a symbol, my role that before was the CIO, so the Chief Information Officer, became CDO. So Chief Digital Officer. It wasn't just a silly thing. I mean, it meant a lot, because it took much more business sensitivity to embrace this new role. And we started the journey, and I like this term because we started the journey in 2018, and journey is a word that I'm really affectionate to, because we started our digital transformation with a digital journey. And when I say digital journey, it means that we really traveled in some places around the world. The old strategic management board, so there was me, the CEO, the chief human resource officer, the chief financial officer. So a lot of the key roles of the company, we went around the world to see companies that, by definition had embraced digital transformation much earlier than a traditional manufacturing company did. And this was really helpful because it created a distributed sensitivity across all of the management team. So it wasn't then any hard to convince my colleagues that we needed to start that transformation. Rather than, I've heard a lot about diversity, inclusion, and you need to get everyone on board when you're doing a digital transformation, or else you don't do a digital transformation when you only have little small elites in the organization that can handle this kind of transformation. And a trick, or something that worked in our company, is to address some specific problems with the agile methodology. And when I say the agile methodology, I don't want to be vague. I mean, there is a methodology that can be, you can get training about, is the Scrum methodology. And it's perfect to combine different skills together and tackle problems that are typically very hard to face at the beginning, because you have no idea how you have to handle, topics like predictive maintenance in the factory. It's very easy to say the word, but when you try to go deeper, then you realize that you don't know where to start from. So if you try to adopt that methodology, and again, you don't invent yourself as a Scrum master all of a sudden. So that is the situation where you need help. In our cases, we were helped by a major consulting company. I'm not saying that you need that company. I'm simply saying that you need to be accompanied through this journey by people that either have already experienced it or have the right methodology to lead you around. But if we have time, but because I don't want to speak, because I don't want to take all the time for me, but actually the agile experience, I still think that was one of the most effective tools that we used in this digital transformation, rather than the choice of the perfect machine learning algorithm to spot the defects on certain gears. So technology is important, but if you don't set up these tools and methodologies, you don't go very far.
Sure, this is both amazing experience, Enrico. You've of course come from a point of view that you were tasked to undertake this particular initiative within your company. I want to pull in Madhavan here. As a service provider, you've worked at the service provider side. You've helped a lot of companies go through this process. How did you go about it? What's your reflection on the other side from what you heard from Enrico right now?
Sure, sure. No, I think it was very pertinent, Sandy. You know, the views are, you know, coincidentally very similar, because I think to the point that Enrico was making, I think now we are moving into a world of not a customer and a service provider. It's like really a customer with a problem statement and a partner to solve the problem, actually, right? So in many of our engagements, you know, at Mar Labs, we have a trusted advisor model. So we actually, you know, have someone like me and some of my colleagues actually work with the board and with the CXO leadership of our customers, because the transformation, to the earlier points that were made, starts from the top. We do actually play a lot more. I can completely resonate with Enrico from the Scrum point of view, because I think it is really about problem solving and solving problems that we don't know or were hitherto were different, right? So the problem solving really means that you're open-ended, but you're multi-skilled and multi-divisional in your skills to be able to solve that. It's not that you design and then you go develop and then you go, you know, roll out. It's like, you know, a lot more together. That's number two, right? Number three is, again, at Mar Labs, if you look at the kind of capabilities that we have seen our customers find very relevant to transformations such as this, it is a lot more into just three very powerful areas. Human intelligence systems. So it's not just about mechanization or automation. It is not about just humans and processes. It's human intelligence systems. You know, I always love to take the example of the aviation industry and its autopilot. You know, it is, if you look at most of how the autopilot systems operate, there's a lot of augmented human intelligence that's fed into it, and it's the same principle that can easily be augmented into smart factories and transformation thereof. The second is about data and visualization. If you look at it, one thing that is not found by the bagful inside factories or inside the manufacturing and the supply chain ecosystem is it does not have embedded information and embedded visualization. With the advent of 5G, with the advent of a very powerful edge AI, your ability to compute and make decisions. Enrico talked about predictive maintenance. I would definitely agree with that. I would also go one step further and to say preventive maintenance, and, you know, efficiencies in the upstream and downstream. Those are powered by data and visualization. You know, examples of how Ericsson went about it, examples of how Rio Tinto, you know, literally put an IIoT plus a big data infrastructure, which reduced their human operations by almost 14% and improved their throughput by 20+%, are all pertinent examples of what has already happened in the industry. That's the second. And the third is, again, I don't mean to go back to environment and sustainability artificially, but it is an extremely important design input for us to be able to sustain these levels into the next 20, 30 years. I think we are at an inflection point. I would love for the leaders not to miss this point, nor the audience. I think we are at an inflection point of having a responsibility to design our products and offerings and the models, whether it is based on consumption or ownership, and build that back into the manufacturing and factory ecosystem, which is designed for the next 20, 30 years, if not beyond. I think that's the inflection point that we are at right now. Human intelligence systems, principles of data and visualization on an edge AI powered by 5G, and the principles of design leading into what we can design into the next 20, 30 years are the conversations that are very helpful to our customers. And that's where Mar Labs and my colleagues are really focused on. And our customers are very open to Enrico's point about having a very good partner ecosystem. If it takes a village to solve things, it takes a bigger ecosystem to solve for this particular wonderful opportunity that we have on hand.
Yeah, that, you know, as you were speaking, Madhavan, you know, obviously, I was also, reflecting on what Dr. Arvind did mention earlier, right? Design, and how do you put resilience by design? Wanted to go, quickly get back to Dr. Arvind and understand what are the examples that he's advised a lot of companies around this space, including capability building and things like that. So, Dr. Arvind, would you like to share a few more anecdotes around that, please?
Sandeep, I was just looking at the watch. It is just 5 minutes left, so I have to really conserve because I can go on talking about how do we build resilience by design. But let me just share a couple of points from my book. I finished writing a book on the new age organization and leadership and how to navigate disruptions and lead in fourth industrial revolution. So I will not get into the organization, new age organization, but since we discussed about leadership, the one thing that I'm now sharing from my book is that a leader has to be system of systems thinker. So that will bring a lot of resilience. Of course, there are many other components that are required. So we have to just move from this reductionist approach from a system to components and innovate, but we have to move and create this platform of platforms or system of system. The leadership or leader should have that vision or that, expansionist thinking of system to lead in fourth industrial revolution. Of course, there are other things also. The last point I want to make from the book is I was just studying what are those things that are required to create 21st century talent. Suppose we say that, okay, skills, what skills that we need to give. So I have three things after studying a lot of individuals and leaders. One is, and most important, that Pablo and Madhavan said, is human skills. Because today machines are more intelligent or becoming more intelligent than humans, and humans can differentiate with machines or work with the machines only when we get into the human skills. I will not get into all those, but we said. The second thing to differentiate and build a new 21st century skill is this creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurial skills. Without that, believe me, smart factory or digital transformation or any other thing that we want to do, it will not work. And the third and most important is what you said is the technology, but technology can be an enabler. There are many experts in the world who can talk about the data, AI, blockchain, and other things, robotics. But at least as a leader, I should know, or as a talent, what is happening in AI, how do I use data, I may not be an expert. So the intersection of this, the human skills, the innovation skills, and the digital skills or technology skills, that intersection is going to make a big difference for the talent that we want to create for this thing. So anyway, because of the time, we have only 2 minutes, so let me stop here. So
this is absolutely fascinating conversation, right? We would love to take this forward, and I'm sure we will possibly come back as a group, maybe in some time, and speak about all of these points that have been raised right now. But that's for the later stage. We've got 2 questions from the audience. Maybe we'll take that up. And if just quick reactions from the team. So we've got one question for Enrico. Enrico, would it be possible quickly to share the methodology that was used by your company, and also the low-hanging fruits that not only helped acceptance but also showed tangible results in your journey in digital transformation? Quick reaction on that, please, Enrico.
Yeah, I mean, the methodology that we used to get quick results was the agile methodology, because in 12 weeks, 2 days a week, with developing teams of people ranging between 6 to 10 people, we experimented more, but it was too much. We achieved the so-called MVPs, which stands for minimum viable products. This is the typical way in which you call what you get out of an agile project. The nice fact is that some of these minimum viable products were so satisfactory that you could get rid of the objective minimum. So some of those were viable products. And actually 12 weeks, basically 3 months, is not a long time to get tangible results when you're talking about digital transformations. Not everything can be done in 12 weeks. I don't want to be misunderstood. I mean, sometimes the agile projects are just the beginning of traditional projects managed with PMO, and they can even last years if the transformation that you're going to do is pervasive and hard. But definitely, also the people, belonging to the development team can get a lot of satisfaction, because they realize that together with different competencies, not just IT competencies, but organizational competencies, skills in HR, knowledge of the process, they can do marvelous things just because they are together with a strong commitment on these kind of projects.
Thank you. Just wanted to reinforce the point that you made, that you did get certain results in 12 weeks, but those are low-hanging fruits. Of course, there is a long journey ahead of you where people have to go through this, right? So
I mean, just two practical examples. There was one project after 12 weeks was good, fine. We didn't do anything more because it was completed. The first project that we did with the Agile was by now 3 years ago. The rollout is still in progress now because it has taken a long time, because we have subsidiaries all around the world, 4,000 employees. So not everything can happen again with a snap like this. It takes time. So being patient doesn't mean, be idle. It means that there are things that you cannot achieve in 90 days. Some things you can, some things you cannot.
Yeah, of course, something you can, something you cannot. Last question before we conclude this session. I'll request Madhavan to give us a quick perspective on this. Speaking about early movers who succeeded in this space. What was their catalyst to start early? Why did they even go ahead and do this, right? I mean, there has to be a reason for people to take up such initiatives, and what are the ingredients that let them succeed?
Sure. No, it'll be theatrical and dramatic to say for the greater good of the world. So that's not the answer. It is really, we went through about 445 to 450 companies which are in different stages of this digital transformations. What I'm rattling out from you is a net sum of that data point, right? And and that also tells us there are at least 450 companies that are really embarked on this journey from the big to small. Almost 40 to 45% of them basically cited cost and cost efficiency as a big driver, because there is enough. As much as we talk about the greater good of the world, which we must, I think this is still a fairly good business endeavor from the point of view of cost and efficiency, right? And that again goes back to the ecosystem, not just by themselves. It also includes their suppliers, distributors, etc. Right? That's number one. About a quarter of them responded saying innovation for the purpose of being able to be ahead of their competition, if not creating new possibilities, was that. Example, I'm sure I'm reading out examples which are out there in the public domain. I don't know how many of us know, and I don't know how many of us are scared about it or encouraged about it. There are 70,000 3D printed parts that Boeing uses today. Okay, so that's no small means. And obviously, if they're using it today, imagine when they've started. The way Ericsson, developed its 5G smart factory and actually funded its own energy needs is basically by their own testing of products, they generated energy to power their plants, right? Those are driven by innovation, and about a third did say that it is for the greater good of the world. So it is not that it is not off the table. Companies like Whirlpool, companies like Rio Tinto, companies like Ericsson, they're committed to the climate change environment. So it is a big driver, whether it is being driven because of compliance or whether it is being really driven by the culture that they create. And that goes to Pablo's earlier point, culture of the leadership and being able to think systems of systems and ingrain that in processes, practices, technology, where the drivers for these early movers, not one, not two, nearly 450 of them. I hope that helps.
Oh, of course it does. And as you're speaking, you've got one last question, and it actually goes to, I'm going to request Dr. Arvind to reflect, because he did gave the example of Novartis, data and AI company, Elon Musk, Tesla, data company. There is a question that we've got, have we reached a stage where every new company is essentially a technology company, and they choose their business domains and verticals versus the other way around in the legacy world?
So, I don't want to say what I think, but I guess Jeff Immelt, I think GE's ex-chairman and CEO, he made a statement. It's a very famous statement. You can, just Google. He says, I guess Jeff Immelt is the right person. I go to sleep as a manufacturing company. I get up in the morning as an IT company. So I'm not saying what a chairman of a GE or that kind of a personality is saying. So what it means is that, see, what is smart factory? the smart factory is nothing but integration of IT and OT. See, earlier, IT was in isolation and OT was in isolation, but this Internet of Things, Edge, and many data, AI, robot, many things. So that made that possible. So it's about that convergence. But now, now when I look, what is going to be in the future? So what we are talking today is all this, maintenance and so on, OEE. Next is we are talking about digital twins. Now, digital twin, if I look at, it's all looks, more IT. Whether you are a manufacturing, automotive, aircraft, it doesn't matter. Now, next we are talking about cognitive systems. Today we are talking about cognitive. It doesn't matter what company you are. So again, it's a predominantly again comes digital or IT. So next, of course, we talk about cognitive production system, but next is biointelligent systems. And this biointelligence system is very, very interesting, by the way, because here we are talking about convergence or integration of bio, information technology or digital technology, and operational technology. And that is going to be the future. And I know, I have seen the labs, I've seen the companies where biointelligent systems are being implemented, and that is going to be the future. Let's watch, how the future shapes. I hope that answers.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. And as I was, as you were reflecting to this point, I could see Pablo smiling. I'm sure he has a few things to add. Pablo.
I would just want to compliment something, because many times when we are in these panels, we're being asked, and we talk about the big companies, right? But there is a lot of space for middle-sized companies, small-sized companies to start thinking in this way. And someone asked about low-hanging fruits. So I have this example of a Mexican company that actually has a joint venture with GE and makes transformers in Mexico. And one of the first steps that they did is, these are make to orders, these are big transformers. So as you imagine, the design, the engineering teams were passing along files by email or by, certain ways of doing it, or blueprints. So to the clients and to the engineers on the other side. And it was a lengthy process, back and forth. And basically, one of the first things they did, and they found there was a low-hanging fruit, was establish the use of a platform to collaborate in real time through virtual reality. So they design the transformer together, and you in virtual reality, you can go inside and see every single component and measure and remeasure and change, make the changes that you want. And that clearly not only accelerated the time to approval of the design, but make the whole process much more efficient. And actually, by that combination of work, they were also to find opportunities to reduce cost for the product and cost actually in the whole system in terms of getting the parts and all the working capital related to the projects. So this is technology that is available today. You can get it today. So if you are not in a big company, you are more in a smaller company, even if you are not in a developing world, you can get started with Industry 4.0.
Fabulous message. I want to go with this for hours and hours, but unfortunately we can't. So I would like to just conclude this session today. It was fabulous hearing from all of you. I'm sure the audience has also loved and you got a lot to think, lot to contribute, I'm sure, as we connect with them again after this session. Just wanted to say a big thank you for all our panelists. Thank you, Dr. Arvind, Madhavan, Enrico, Pablo. Thank you very much for joining in today. It was fabulous to hear. We continue to get a few questions, by the way, but I'm sorry, we're completely out of time. But my commitment is we will go back to the panelists with the questions that you've asked, and we'll get their responses and send it back to you either through video or through a written note in a few days. I also on behalf of this panel, would like to give an opportunity that we would want to come back as this panel over a period of next quarter or so to see how things are rolling out. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining in. Thank you, the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Hosting you all. Thank you very much. Take care.